CAU.
If you're trying to grow your business, add diversity.
What you do?
Hit up client attraction university. When it comes to getting clients, you face adversity. You need to hit up client attraction university. Client attraction, client attraction, client attraction, client attraction university. Client attraction university.
Client Attraction University, $250 million in revenue for coaches, consultants, and service providers all across the globe. And that number is growing as you listen to this. Want more clients, profit, freedom, and impact? Go to paidadplaybook.com.
If you're trying to grow your business, add diversity.
What you do?
Hit up Client Attraction University. When it comes to getting clients, you face adversity. You need to hit up Client Attraction University.
Paidadplaybook.com. That's PAID ad playbook.com. So my 2022 in review. So I know a lot of times, especially if you're a for-profit, impact-driven entrepreneur like myself, we're always looking at, okay, what's the next thing to accomplish? What's the next mountain to climb? What's the next thing to conquer, right? But a lot of times we don't really take time to review. So one of the things that we actually teach our clients is actually our review process. The weekly review process, the monthly review process, quarterly review process, even with this thing called, we have to call it the Best Year Ever Blueprint. And it's about annual review and things of that nature and planning and so forth. So however, I just want to kind of be transparent. I normally don't do this type of thing, but I actually want to kind of do my 2022 in review and share some wins that I had, some significant moments, even some of the challenges. I'm even going to share some accomplishments that I'm proud of. I got some notes right here because I want to make sure I'm giving you everything. Also, some cool events, some favorite books, all this different type of stuff. And so you can actually take some of this and learn from it because I did it to review and learn from it. So I want to do the same and share it with you so you can actually take it and learn from it as well. All right. So let's go ahead and dive in. So I want to start with, because again, a lot of times we look at what went wrong. So I want to start with what went right. And then of course we'll get into some what went wrong and that type of thing as well. All right. So let's dive in. So first, a couple things. Let's see where I want to start. So one thing, what went right, a significant moment. We actually had our biggest client only boot camp ever. So we've been doing client-only boot camps with our clients in our Client Attraction University program. Well, it wasn't the Client Attraction University program, but with our private clients, we've been doing client-only boot camps for probably about 7 years. And when we started off, it was literally 8 of us or so, including my business partner, Dre. When we did 2022, we had 123 people there from all over the globe. So we pretty much quadrupled over the past few years. So it's been very exciting to see that. Also, another cool thing that happened, we actually landed on the Inc. 5000's fastest growing companies list as well. A couple of things to note of how we actually did that. So one of the things we did is we doubled down on client success. So we started tracking one of the metrics that we track as a company. So of course, measuring things like lead cost, measuring things like application cost per acquisition, all the type of stuff, profit, all that's very important. One of the metrics we track as a company that most people don't track is the NPS score. So the NPS score is called a Net Promoter Score. So it's essentially like, what's the chances of a client referring you to somebody else? And they got a cool ways, like anything, they can rate you between 1 to 10. I think it's 8 to 10. You can measure it, but anything, I think 5, 6, 7, it doesn't really calculate. Less than 5, then of course you calculate that away. So it's a weird thing, right? So we got very intentional about increasing that score, right? Because our number one principle as a company is client obsession. So we want to know, is our clients getting results? Because that's our biggest competitive advantage is the amount of client success stories that we have. And the reason we have so many client success stories is that we're obsessive about it and we're obsessive about how we can actually get our clients results, which leads me to another massive win that we had is we actually gave our program a total facelift. So we enhanced the entire program. We made it even more simple, even more impactful. We also added a monthly fly-in where our clients can actually fly in and work with us in person in their event once a month, right? And you got to qualify, be at a certain point in your business to get the most out of it. But then they can come down, we can work with them when we do this once a month. Every month that we're not doing a client event, they can actually come down and work on their event. And that's been great so far. And also all the enhancements and so forth in the program. So those are a couple things. Another thing, we got another year of therapy in, right? So one of the things I committed to like 2 years ago was hiring a therapist. I tried a therapist before. It was great. However, it was another level that I hadn't tapped into, right? So I knew it was something else. So I ended up stumbling across another therapist, locked in for another year, and it's been totally transformative for me. And one of the biggest takeaways from working with my therapist is really having self-compassion, right? So it's like I'm the type of person, like I'm hard on myself. Like I'm harder on myself than anybody else can never be harder on me, right? I hold myself to a really high standard, so I can easily find myself judging myself in many ways as well, right? So one of the things that I learned is like really having self-compassion as I'm growing, right? And even so much, we actually had a session the other day, and he was like, yesterday actually, and he was like, what's one of the things you feel like you should be doing? And like a couple years ago, I'd have been like, I should be doing this, I should be making this, I should be doing this, should be playing at a high level, should be. And one of the things I said to him, I was like, well, I could say, well, I should be playing at a high level, or I should be serving more people at a high level, I should be this. But I'm like, but should I? Or am I just exactly where I am and I'm continuing to just level up, right? So it's more so me and the knowledge of like, here's where I am, here's all the play, here's how we're winning and all the different ways that we're winning, and then capitalizing on those things. So another year of therapy was big for us. Another thing, I actually got down to 165 pounds. So I started working with a trainer, and I've been working out over the past few years and just been kind of getting marginal results, right? However, I've been working with this trainer. It's been a total game changer for me in more ways. It pushes me beyond what I thought was possible. Started seeing some significant transformation, really tested my discipline, the whole 9 yards. And that helps me level up as a business owner as well, because that's like the hardest part of my day. So when I get that done and I come out, I'm full speed ahead. Everything else is sweet because I've gotten the thing that gives me the most resistance done the first part of the day. And I believe that you always got to have a coach in every area of your life. And if you're not, you're really missing the ball. So that's another thing. Also, I'm not a tax professional, neither do I play one on TV. However, my car, our truck, my wife normally drives the truck most, got totaled. My sister-in-law was driving it, got totaled, which ended up being a gift and a curse, right? Because it was, not a gift and a curse, but it ended up being some benefit to it. So it was about time to get something new anyway. We just weren't going to get anything new because we got younger kids and they always mess stuff up anyway. So it was like, we're just going to wait. The truck got totaled, we had to get something. So we went and got a brand new truck, got a good deal. We actually ended up buying a car on one of these online sites. We ended up getting it delivered, had to send it back, found another deal. Well, found a better deal actually. And it was newer, the whole 9 yards. And of course, if you could, of course, speak to your CPA or your tax professional or whatever. But of course, they have this new tax law, where if you get a truck that's over, I think, 6,000 pounds, you can actually write it off. Of course, if you're using it for business and things of that nature, right? So we end up going to get the car, grabbing the truck, getting the tax deduction, all that. So that worked out, huge. So that's another thing. Also, I invested, and again, I normally don't share stuff like this. I actually invested over $200,000 in my education in 2022. Masterminds, events. And this ain't like courses. This is more like masterminds, private consulting, that type of thing. Because the thing that we get the biggest ROI on is coaching and consulting and ads. Right? I don't see a higher ROI on anything else, right? Than in those things. So I'm always looking at, who do I hire now? Who would I hire for this? So I invested actually over $200,000 into ads, which was phenomenal. And another thing, I actually created a tradition. So one thing a lot of people don't know is, like, when my granddad died, it actually made me the last Russell in our family, right? So I actually, like, okay, everything that comes after me is important. It's important how I show up because I'm the last Russell. Now God's blessed me with 4 boys, Russells. Now we can continue that, right? So one of the traditions that I created for our family, and I'm praying that they continue, is every single year we bring Christmas in a different country. So this past year we did another country, which was the Bahamas, right? So they say they want to do Dubai, so we're looking at Dubai for 2023. We'll see how that goes. So it's a game changer. Like, that thing, travel levels you up more than almost anything else. So we're super intentional about that. All right. So, but that's what I got on that. So let me keep going. People, events, or projects that made me feel good or energized. So number one was creating a new curriculum for our clients, or at least, giving our curriculum a facelift to improve the experience for our clients. Also, in-person events. I love in-person events for our clients. They're super transformational. A lot of times I'm exhausted after them because I put out a lot, hold space for a lot of people, but it's super beneficial for all of us. Hey, what's up? Real quick, it's Marquel here. Just want to hop in and share something really cool with you. So I don't really sell advertising or anything on this podcast. However, I like to pop in here and there and share some helpful resources that may be beneficial for you and your business. So I actually want to let you know that we actually have our Wealthy Black Coach Rapid Business Growth Workshop coming up. And you can actually grab a ticket right now for 100% free. All you got to do is go to wealthyblackcoach.com. And when you join us for this event, I'm going to show you how to create a personal blueprint. I'm actually going to walk you through a personal blueprint to attract 5 clients every single week. So go ahead and go to wealthyblackcoach.com right now, get registered, and let's get back to the show. We actually started working on our Wealthy Black and Genius event. That's actually going to be in September. We're going to start doing that every year. You may be able to register, maybe not. I'm not sure. You can go to wealthyblackgenius.com. Not sure what's happening right now when you're seeing this, but go to wealthyblackgenius.com and you can actually get the details on that. And basically, most people, when it comes to growing a coaching business, people talk about starting it. People start about growing it. People start talking about scaling it, right? And of course, those are different phases. Now, most people don't talk about how do you build this coaching business and turn it into a sellable asset, because they don't really see the coaching business as a sellable asset, or they just see it as an online business, don't see it as a real business, but you can actually turn it into a sellable asset and actually sell it for a multiple. So at your Wealthy Black and Genius, we're going to be talking about the whole aspect, the building, the scaling, and how do you sell it and exit it, right? So you can exit it from selling it, or you can exit the day-to-day, or exit just your roles to do other roles in the company. So we'll be talking about the different exits and so forth as well. So, and also, shout out to another thing, people, events, or projects that made me feel good or energized. Another thing that I put on here is the Breakfast Club. Now, I'm not talking about the podcast. I'm talking about our crew. If you see our videos in the gym, it's me, trainer Sai, my guy Cantus, Dr. Kirk. We get it in, and somehow I got to remember how we even came up with it, but we call it the Breakfast Club. Maybe because we in there at 7:30 in the morning getting straight tortured. So that was the other one. So let me keep going. Favorite books, articles, or events. So I would say a couple of my favorite books, and a new author that's one of my favorites now is this guy named Jason Wilson. So he has a book called Battle Cry and a book called Cry Like a Man. And he's really diving deep into dealing with emotional trauma that us as men have and carry. And how do you navigate that from an emotional standpoint, right? Because a lot of times as entrepreneurs and even parents, we'll just talk about entrepreneurship for a second. We want to level up because we're carrying all this emotional baggage and trauma from relationships, from childhood, and all these different things. So he really dives deep into that in a very practical way. So Cry Like a Man is more of a memoir in his story, but Battle Cry is actually more practical and more step by step, if anything, right? Another book that I would say that was big for me is Up From Slavery. It was a biography by George Washington Carver. And it basically reminds you of when you think your life is tough, actually how untough your life actually is when we look at what our ancestors have to deal with. So I always remind myself when I think life is getting tough, I remind myself that my ancestors survived the transatlantic slave trade in the Middle Passage. If you don't know what that is, research it. But our ancestors survived that, and they built without any of the technology that we have, any of the resources we have, any of that type of stuff. Everything stacked against us, and they still won. So we can actually pull a lot from that. So I highly recommend that book. Like George Washington Carver was actually a legit slave. And then he went through, started managing, and he actually was the person who actually grew Tuskegee. I actually thought he started Tuskegee. He didn't start Tuskegee, but he came in and took it over. I'm not going to blow the whole story, but go check it out. But very, very inspiring stuff. And the last one I'll give you, I got a few more, but the last one I'll give you is The Power of Full Engagement. And it's basically talking about creating that balance of energy expenditure, using energy, and then also rest and renewal. Because a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we get in that grind. And the book talks about how us as entrepreneurs, we're actually corporate athletes, right? And as corporate athletes, we have to operate as professional athletes. And professional athletes, the ones that really operate at a high level, they have this balance of, quote unquote, balance of energy expenditure and energy renewal. And how do you balance all out? So I highly recommend that. Those are the ones I'll share with you. A big lesson, I want to share a couple of lessons learned and mistakes real quick, right? So a couple of big lessons learned. Because I got 2 things I want to share, which I'm trying to see which one I'm going to do first. So I'm going to do lessons learned and mistakes. So number 1, I had a 90% fail rate on my goals for 2022. 90%. So 90% of my goals I didn't hit in 2022. However, it still ended up being the best year of my life, right? Now, I saw a guy who posted one day, he was like, I hit 90% of my goals. And you know what that told me? And that's wasn't judging him. But what that told me is that he's most likely set his goals too low, right? So my goals, and I'm not comparing my goals to him and none of that. However, I believe all goals aren't necessarily meant to hit, right? It's to stretch you and see how far you can go, right? And we just made a lot of adjustments throughout, not a lot, but we made several adjustments throughout the year that actually threw us off as well. So we changed our acquisitions. We made some tweaks with our acquisition system. As a company, we had to grow. Now we have like 30 some people on our team. So we had to make a lot of different adjustments along the way, okay? Another big mistake that I have is I didn't necessarily keep my main goals in front of me. So I had them, but I wasn't reviewing them consistently. So now this year, a big thing I'm super intentional about is part of my morning success ritual, making sure we're reviewing those goals consistently, updating those goals, tweaking the goals, and so forth. Another thing is too much time on social and like seeing what other people are doing. I think social media is a gift. Social media is amazing, but I think you gotta set a balance of like not being on it so much and being very conscious about who you're following, right? Even if you're following individuals who are doing amazing, you can actually fall into a place of like comparing yourself, and that'll actually throw you off, okay? And so you want to be very, very conscious of that, okay? I also got off focus on my financial wealth building plan. So I know one of my big focuses for 2022 was financial mastery and wealth building, because making money is one thing, right? But actually what you do when you make the money is a totally different game. So we want to be very conscious of that. So I know that's a huge focus. I'm going to do a whole nother video on my 2023 plan. But yeah, so I'm very conscious of that. I got off track with that. I mean, I did some things, but really, really, really wasn't all in on it like I should have been, okay? Now, how can I do more of the things that I want to do this year and create more of the results? So here's a couple things. Number one, eliminate time wasted on social media and email, all right? Number two, go to bed on time. So like practically scheduling time. So last year I had an app where it would lock me out. It would only give me an hour on social media. So I think I'm gonna go back to that, right? I don't wanna delete my social media completely, but just limiting the time and making it lock me out. Also scheduling when I check my email. One thing that I'm working on doing is like checking my email in the morning at 9:30 after our team huddle, and then checking my email after we wrap up the day, and then being done with email. Because the email can be addictive, right? Because we want to get new information, see what's happening, just like social media. Number two, go to bed on time. So I'm clear-headed when making commitment decisions, right? Because a lot of times we're running on fumes and we're tired, and then we're making decisions from this state as well. So we don't want to be doing that. We want to be getting optimal sleep. I know for me, 6 hours is about optimal for me. If I'm asleep by 10, get up at 3:45, I'm phenomenal. Sometimes I get to bed earlier, sometimes later, but being super intentional about that and also tracking my sleep and being aware of that as well. I set a standard for my opportunities. So I'm not doing heavy lifting that isn't energizing for me personally. So being conscious of like what opportunities I'm taking on. I know my speaking schedule is getting crazy. I'm getting more opportunities to speak. I'm getting more opportunities to be on podcasts. So just getting to a place to just say no. Because at one point, I didn't want to be the guy that had accomplished these different things. And now people are reaching out to me, getting on the platforms. And I'm saying no, because I've seen that. And I was like, I'll never be that guy. But it's like, I get it. Like I can't say yes to everything. We got a company to run. I got a family. I got my own life. So it's like, I got to be very careful about what I say yes to. Also, last two is schedule intentional learning time that I stick to. So I buy a lot of courses, right? However, with my time and things of that nature, I don't really get intentional about getting through them. So now I'm very intentional. So this in the morning, even books, like a lot of my books I consume, I would listen to them on my audiobook. And then I want to go through it with notes. So I get the physical book, go through it. However, what I'm doing now is I read, I got a Kindle and it's hooked to this tool called Readwise. So it automatically backs up all my highlights. So now I don't got to read a book, highlight it, then go retype the highlights all over again. It automatically backs it all up. And then it pushes it into this other tool called Notion, which is really cool, which is what I'm reading these notes from right now. So I got the Kindle. It ties into, I still like to have the physical books in the library, right? So I'm intentional about getting my 30 minutes of reading in the morning, part of my morning success ritual, before I actually go to the gym. I may do a whole other video on morning success ritual if you want to learn about that, right? So yeah, I'm doing that. And then my morning success ritual on Wednesday, I typically don't do the exact morning success ritual. And I'll sit down for those 2 hours in the morning before I wake my kids up and go through whatever course or program that I'm actually going through. So I'm just being super intentional about it. And then lastly, schedule intentional thinking time. I did it last year, but I just want to be even more intentional about it. I actually learned about thinking time from this book called The Road Less Stupid, right? One of my favorite business books. It's about sitting down, having specific things. Some people say, well, I think when I'm driving around, I'm listening to music. No, I'm talking about sitting down, computer off, closed, phone on do not disturb, pen and paper, and you're thinking on paper. Most people don't do that, right? Especially for an extended period of time. So literally 1 to 2 hours a week, 1 to 2 days a week, 45 to 60 minutes of just straight thinking time. Thank you so much for checking out this episode. Have a phenomenal day because you absolutely deserve it. Talk to you soon.
What's the difference between you and mega successful coaches and consultants with a dream business? Simple. They're getting more leads than you are. What if there was a way to get 50 to 100 leads every single day like clockwork? Would you want it? Then go to www.getdailyclients.com to access our paid ad playbook that has brought in millions of leads for our clients over the years on complete autopilot.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.